get joy thinking about what he's done for me. I get joy thinking about what he's done for me. It's in my hands, my feet, I'm talking about what he's done for me. I get joy just thinking about what he's done for me. I get joy thinking about.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome again to our Wednesday Bible study. We're so delighted that you decided to join us as we go through our series of studies on the Patriarchs. We talked about Abraham and his life and the trials he endured. We saw the growth of this father of the faithful. We talked about Isaac and all his trials. We also read about Jacob and how he struggled with his brother and how he became the father of 12 sons and one daughter. And now we're looking at the life of Joseph. We're closing in on the end of our series, and we hope these lessons have opened your eyes a little bit more to those great men of God, the patriarchs, who are spoken of so reverently by Israel. So, where we pick up, finally, the deception is over. Joseph has made himself known to his brothers and revealed the plan of God to send him before them for deliverance against the famine. We remember Pharaoh had a dream, and his magicians and wise men could not interpret the dream. So they called on Joseph, who was at that point in prison. God gave him the interpretation that 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine were coming. They're now into the famine. So now when his brethren realized this is our brother Joseph, they were stunned. They don't know if he will be vengeful or not, even though he assures them that he won't. Now Pharaoh hears that Joseph's family is there and invites them to come to Egypt. He offers them the land of Goshen for habitation and sends wagons back to Canaan for their goods and their little ones. Picking up at Genesis chapter 45, verse 25, and they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan under Jacob their father, and told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. And they told him all the words of Joseph which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, It is enough. Joseph my son is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. All right, now that Jacob knows that Joseph is alive, he's comforted. This episode in Israel's history is also recited in the New Testament by Stephen in Acts chapter 7, beginning at verse number 2. And he said, Men, brethren, fathers, hearken, the God of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Canaan, and said unto him, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans, and dwelt in Canaan, and from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land where ye now dwell. And he gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on. Yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession, and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. And God spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage, and entreat them evil 400 years. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, said God. And after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begat Isaac, and circumcised him the 8th day. And Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs. And the patriarchs, moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt. But God was with him and delivered him out of all his afflictions and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And he made him governor over Egypt and all his house. Now there came a dearth over all the land of Egypt and Canaan, and great affliction, and our fathers found no substance. Remember, this is Stephen talking in Acts chapter 7. But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent out our fathers first. And at the second time, Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh. Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him, and all his kindreds, 75 souls. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died, he and our fathers, and were carried over into Shechem and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham brought for a sum of money of the sons of Emor, the father of Shechem. All right, so we see this episode as it occurs in the Old Testament and then recounted again in the New Testament. Jacob could not believe that Joseph was alive. And it's very understandable. This has been many years since Joseph had gone missing. And now to hear that he's alive and the story that his sons are telling him is just too much to believe until he saw the wagons sent to bring him to Egypt. How wonderful was the news that the son you thought was dead is alive and in charge in Egypt. Genesis chapter 46, verse 1. And Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices unto God, his father, the God of his father, Isaac. So to honor God, Israel went to an important place called Beersheba. We've read of Beersheba before in our studies. Isaac worshiped God at Beersheba, Genesis chapter 26, verses 23 and 24. And he went up from thence to Beersheba. And the Lord appeared unto him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham, thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and I will bless thee and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. All right, why did Isaac worship at Beersheba? Because his father Abraham worshiped at Beersheba, Genesis chapter 21. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. So this was a very important religious location for the patriarchs. Abraham, Isaac, and now Jacob go there to worship Jehovah before he goes into Egypt. Chapter 46, verse 1. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy fathers. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father and their little ones and their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they took their cattle and their goods which they had gotten in the land of Canaan and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him into Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons. All right, the next few verses from Genesis chapter 46, verses 9 through 27, list each name of the sons and their wives and their children that went into Egypt from Canaan with Jacob. Now, the names are not really crucial to this study, but you are encouraged to read them at your leisure. Just a fair warning. Good luck with the pronunciations of those names. All right. Now, God came to Israel And he said, don't be afraid to go down into Egypt. God knows how we're feeling. And he would not say, don't be afraid, if Jacob was not afraid. And I can imagine that Jacob was afraid. The reports he had gotten back from his sons were that they were evil treated when they went there to buy corn. So now Jacob is being summoned to Egypt to live. So here we see how Israel got into Egypt. After telling Jacob that he would give him the land in which he dwelt, he had to convince him of his protection in order to bring him out of that land. Now, in Acts 7, Stephen states that 75 went into Egypt. Moses says here that 70 went into Egypt. And the difference is explained as Joseph's grandsons who were born while he was in Egypt, but still of the lineage of Jacob. So if you look at 1 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 14 through 20, and you'll see that those numbers are consistent. All right, picking up at verse number 28. And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to direct his face unto Goshen. They came unto the land of Goshen. And Joseph made ready his chariot, and he went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen, and presented himself unto him. And he fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said unto Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, my brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade hath been to feed cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds, and all that they have. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call you, and shall say, what is your occupation? That ye shall say, thy servant's trade hath been about cattle from our youth even until now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Okay. Jacob is finally brought to see Joseph, and the reunion is complete. I can imagine the outpouring of emotions. Jacob hadn't seen his son in many years, and Joseph hadn't seen his father in many years. They loved each other when they were together. He thought his son was dead, and now they are together. The tribes are now under the protection of the Egyptians. They're not a family of nomads in a land among hostiles, and they are allowed to grow into a nation without the threat of invasion. Now, history is divided as to why every shepherd was an abomination to the Egyptians. It appears that Joseph said, tell them that you're shepherds, and that way you can stay in that land separated from the Egyptians. It could be because shepherds were associated with lawlessness, or that shepherds sacrificed ox or sheep that the Egyptians worshipped. We don't know for certain, but we do know that they did not want to mingle. If you remember when Joseph's brothers came to him and he said, let's eat lunch at my house, that the Egyptians ate by themselves and the Israelites ate by themselves and Joseph ate by himself. All right, picking up at Genesis chapter 47, verse 1. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh and said, my father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan. And behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. Pharaoh said unto his brethren, what is your occupation? He said unto Pharaoh, thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. They said, moreover, unto Pharaoh, for to sojourn in the land are we come. For thy servants have no pasture for their flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, How old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to their family. Now, I don't want you to forget the prophecy shown in Pharaoh's dream of 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine is still into the famine years. Hear the words of Joseph in Genesis 45 and 10. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee. For yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. All right. So the providence of God has landed them in Egypt, where they are protected and provided for in the best land, a land that can support all of their herds. Verse 13. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. Look at this. You can't buy corn anywhere else except Egypt. So everybody's coming to buy corn in Egypt, and Joseph is making a killing. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. They said, We don't have any more money. And Joseph said, verse 16, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for the flocks and for the cattle of the herds and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle that year. When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, We will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There's not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. And give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. So the men came and say, Look, we gave you all our money. We gave you all our cattle. All we have left is our bodies and our land. Joseph, why don't you give us some food, give us some seed so that we can plant, so the land will not be desolate. Verse 20. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. Look at what Pharaoh's house is reaping. Because of the wisdom of Jacob, they got all the money in the land, they got all the cattle in the land, and now they own all the land. Verse 21. And as for the people, He removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat of their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land, and it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the 5th part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests, only which became not Pharaoh's. All right, because of Joseph's wisdom, he has not only saved Egypt, but he has made Pharaoh rich by being able to sell food in the famine for money, cattle, land, and servitude. All right. So we see the wisdom of Joseph because God was with him. We thank you so much for tuning in and studying with us. Again, we pray that you find the lessons in these texts that will help you in your daily walk with God. He's a providing God. He's a protecting God, and he is faithful as he promised. Please share these lessons with others, your friends and acquaintances. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our channel, and continue to help us to spread the word of God over this magnificent venue called the internet. Until next week, we always pray that you be careful and be prayerful. God bless you.
It's in my hands, my feet, I'm talking about what he's done for me. I get joy just thinking about what he's done for me.